Hi everyone, this is Roger Hosking, and thanks for joining us today. You've probably been hearing and reading more about SOSA over the last year, and a lot of progress has been made since then. I know a lot of our distributors outside the US might feel that SOSA doesn't affect them, but that will change as the impact of SOSA starts moving first to NATO countries and then elsewhere. Your customers may already have been asking about SOSA and Pentec's role as a vendor. This presentation will arm you with some good information to help them. It all started in 2013 with a directive from DoD for procurement to follow open system architecture principles, often called MOSA for Modular Open Systems Architecture. Here are those principles. To enhance competition, to facilitate new technology refresh, to incorporate innovation, to enable cost savings, and to improve interoperability. You can see that all these objectives are good for the DoD, but because they help to streamline procurement, it also happens to be good for our industry. Driven by the MOSA directive, all three U.S. DoD services developed their own initiatives. These are HOST from the Navy, CMOS from the Army, and OMS from the Air Force, which we looked at in some detail last year. All three initiatives adopted the best open standards available to meet their needs. After about 5 years of development, everyone realized that these three standards had a lot in common. So a single initiative called the SOSA Consortium was created to develop a single unified standard called the SOSA Technical Standard. SOSA and VITA share a lot of common members to coordinate the latest requirements. You can be sure that OpenVPX plays a major role in that standard. One of the major roles of SOSA is defining the SOSA technical architecture and following MOSA principles. Here it is in a nutshell. First, it must be modular, with each module having a well-defined function and interface. This means tight, efficient functions inside, but easy to connect to other modules. It must be open in 3 different ways: based on widely published standards, governed by consensus, and validated by a formal compliance process. SOSA modules follow the gray box concept, which is simple and effective. It defines what the box does and the interfaces between the boxes, but it does not exactly define how the functions are performed within the box. This protects the intellectual property within the box while still allowing competition. As we've said, VITA plays a strong role in the SOSA technical standard. First of all, let's avoid some confusion. SOSA uses the term plugin card to refer to what are usually called VITA modules, like the 3U VPX module made by Pentec. SOSA modules, on the other hand, are hardware and/or software entities compliant with the gray box concept, and the term module within SOSA is still being fully defined. SOSA depends heavily on VITA standards for plug-in cards, chassis, backplanes, cooling, power supplies, and chassis management, but it carefully chooses which of those sections to use. For example, SOSA may require certain standards just the way they are. Some rules in SOSA are only recommendations in VITA. Some rules in SOSA are restrictive extensions of VITA standards, such as limiting the allowed number and type of slot profiles. Some rules in SOSA are derived from other standards that are themselves based on VITA standards, like system management in HOST 3.0. Some recommendations from SOSA may result in new or extended VITA standards that may become rules in SOSA. Here's an important way SOSA recommendations can inspire new VITA standards. You may know that SOSA membership is restricted to U.S. citizens, so that classified requirements can be discussed. On the other hand, VITA membership is worldwide. So, in classified discussions, SOSA may identify a new need for a sensitive application. Although VITA can't be told why it's needed, that recommendation for a new hardware feature, for example, can be passed along to VITA. Once VITA adopts the new standard or extension, SOSA can then adopt it too. So, what's the SOSA technical standard and its status? The standard documents the hardware, software, and electromechanical aspects of real-time sensing solutions. It's still under development, but the draft document has been released for review in periodic snapshots. The latest snapshot is Snapshot 3, which was issued in July of 2020. The first release of Technical Standard 1.0 is expected to happen in early 2021. Here's a link if you want to get the snapshot, but you first have to register to become a SOSA member. Now, let's look at the SOSA Consortium membership hierarchy. At the top of the chain are the sponsors. You'll recognize most of these as government agencies and top-tier DoD contractors. You can see the primary location of these organizations, although many of them have multiple facilities and some might be in your territory. Next, the principal level members are all major U.S. DoD prime contractors. Look at how all of these facilities are spread out across the country. You should do some research to find out what's happening with SOSA in your territory. Next, we'll look at the associate level members. Most of these names you'll recognize as our longtime partners, suppliers, customers, and yes, competitors. But you'll also see a lot of new companies, many of them software, firmware, and consulting startups looking for good SOSA business opportunities. Because SOSA encourages collaboration between its members, you might be able to find a possible connection to Pentech that could be good for everyone. Let's see what the SOSA product status is at this time. Many SOSA industry members have announced products in development, quote, in alignment with the SOSA technical standard. No company can yet claim conformance to SOSA. Conformance to SOSA is only possible once the technical standard is approved and after the products have passed SOSA certification. Aligned products include boards, software, chassis, connectors, components, and services from the list of SOSA members below. Many of these companies displayed their products in the very successful SOSA interoperability event that took place in January of this year down in Atlanta. Now let's look at how Pentech is investing and participating in SOSA. First of all, Paul Mezebov is heavily involved as the co-chair of the hardware subcommittee of the technical working group. He's on the phone for several weekly web conferences and also has written parts of the evolving technical standards. It's a very tough job because the mission is challenging and each member has his own view of what it should be. Gina Peter is the co-chair of the SOSA Outreach Committee of the Business Working Group to market and promote SOSA to the industry. She's also on the phone every week to set plans for promotions, events, media coverage, and publications. I've done at least a dozen articles and editor interviews for articles featuring SOSA and have promoted the SOSA story at conferences, in webcasts, and at customer meetings. Pentech has been very active in many marketing events, including the interoperability event in January. That was a major success. Our website has a new SOSA homepage filled with white papers, articles, pipeline newsletters, videos, tutorials, and products all focused on SOSA. Jason will be discussing this later. In January 2019, the DoD issued its landmark Tri-Service Memo. It's from the Secretaries of the Navy, the Army, and the Air Force. It's written to acquisition executives and program officers. The subject is MOSA as a warfighting imperative for weapons systems. It specifically references open standards, including SOSA. This directive is already started to drive program requirements and purchasing activities in the DoD. Now let's look at Pentech's SOSA-aligned products. Last year, we released the JADE 71813 XMC module in alignment with SOSA requirements for programmable control logic. It's typically installed on a single board computer, and we demonstrated this at the SOSA interoperability event in January of this year. The Model 5550 is the SOSA-aligned version of our popular Quartz 5950 RF-SoC 3U VPX card released in January this year. It uses the same Quartz XM module as the 5950, and it's also supported by our new Model 2757 100 gigabit Ethernet Talon recorder. Here's a quick look at our Model 5550, which Bob Scandura covered nicely yesterday. An important new feature, inspired by analog backplane I/O, needed by SOSA, are new high-density Vita 67.3D connectors for both coaxial RF and optical I/O. The other features provide the SOSA-aligned interfaces in the emerging SOSA technical standard, all based on recent additions to Vita's OpenVPX. I'm sure you'll be getting some questions from your customers about the 5550, so I've tried to anticipate some of them and provide some answers. First, when can I get the Model 5550 SOSA-aligned version of the module? Delivery time is 8 to 10 weeks, so you can order it today. When can I get a SOSA-certified version of the 5550? Two things have to happen. The SOSA technical standard has to be released, probably in January 21, and the 5550 has to successfully pass third-party certification tests that'll probably be in the middle of 2021. Will Pentech upgrade the aligned 5550 that I buy today to a certified 5550 after the standard is released for free? Yes, if the upgrade does not require replacement of major hardware features, and we do not anticipate that. Most customers will continue to use their original aligned board for development, qualification, and proof of concept, so this may not be necessary. Will today's Navigator and Xilinx development tools work for the certified SOSA 5550? Yes, although revisional upgrades may be necessary, they'll be at no cost from Pentech and usually no cost from Xilinx. Will the FPGA IP and software I develop today be SOSA conformant? It's likely that the FPGA IP will be conformant, but some software may need revisions as the standard matures and is finally released. If I change Pentec's factory installed IP and software, will I need to resubmit my board for recertification? This is still being discussed and defined in the SOSA working groups, although a reasonable accommodation will be made, still consistent with the principles of SOSA. What kind of SOSA business opportunities should you be on the lookout for? First of all, open architectures are being adopted for major acquisition category or ACAT programs and being specified on programs of record. Government funding for these programs that have OSA content will be easier to secure and more quickly funded. DoD has already issued requests for proposals, bids, information, and quotes, all referencing OSA, including SOSA. The current wording says that offers from vendors that incorporate more OSA content will be favored over those with less content. The SOSA technical standard should be released in early 2021. After that happens, the SOSA requirement wording in these documents will gradually migrate from should be SOSA conformant to shall be SOSA conformant. Prime DoD contractors and systems integrators are looking for suppliers like Pentec to boost OSA or SOSA content to improve their DoD contract win rate. And the smaller COTS vendors are typically more agile in supplying this new technology and thus will have an advantage. And of course, Pentec is right on front of that. Here are some takeaway benefits of SOSA to remember. First of all, for the government, it means streamlined and cost-effective acquisition. That means shorter procurement cycles. It makes new technology insertion much easier for upgrades to extend life cycles. It improves interoperability between and within SOSA systems. For industry, it protects intellectual property and reduces development costs through standards and modularity. It gives vendors more opportunities to source SOSA products to prime contractors. It also lets vendors focus on and build on standard product families. Here's some more information about SOSA and VITA. Here's how to get involved with VITA, and any of you can join. Remember, all the SOSA resources on our new SOSA homepage, you can share these documents with your customers. And here's a link to get the latest SOSA Snapshot 3 document. Here's how you can sign up to join SOSA. Thanks again for joining us today, and look for some great upcoming SOSA opportunities. The more you know, the more likely your customers will turn to you for answers. Thank you.